BC is poised to become the first province in Canada to legally recognize the right of Indigenous communities to provide their own child welfare systems.
Our children have an inherent right to know who they are, where they come from, what they belong to.
The current legislation in the province does not allow the BC government to hand over cases of children entering or already in care to an Indigenous government. The proposed amendments include new information sharing and consent agreements, bringing BC in line with similar federal legislation, Bill C-92, which came into force in 2020.
This day heralds the achievement of the goals pursued for many years by successive chiefs and councils.
The news has been acclaimed by advocates as a positive step forward, with the hope other provinces will follow suit.
In December, we're going to the Supreme Court because Quebec challenged C-92, or the ability for us to have our own laws and jurisdiction. So throughout the country, there's definitely, there's from one extreme to the other.
Advocate Mary Teegee has also been involved in negotiations at the heart of a second major announcement this week. The Canadian Human Rights Tribunal rejecting Ottawa's offer to compensate Indigenous children and families harmed by the discriminatory on-reserve system.
They rejected it because many of the victims that would be otherwise entitled to compensation were going to be left out. And that just did not sit well with us.
Teegee says the $20 billion cap for compensation, a key part of the larger $40 billion deal, described as historic by the feds, would leave out an estimated 15,000 victims covered by the landmark ruling, and points to a solution.
Tribunal states is that what they are saying is that $20 billion that's already earmarked for compensation be placed in a trust, and the interest from that $20 billion would be utilized to compensate other victims.
But that would hinge on having all sides agree. The Assembly of First Nations lead negotiator called the rejection deeply frustrating and sad. Ashley Bach, who says she was taken from her family shortly after birth, is worried for all those who expected to receive compensation early in the new year.
I want them to say that to the youth from Nan Territory who tried to kill herself on the side of the road in my hands because she aged out and was homeless and had no money. And honestly, to me, it sounded like she didn't have any hope for the future, which are things that the compensation will help to alleviate.
Bach says no funding amount will ever be perfect and delays are unacceptable.
Suddenly, these other concerns are being pulled out of nowhere in order to delay it.
A plea highlighting the urgency behind these fundamental changes aimed at helping to reduce the overrepresentation of Indigenous children in care, often on the brink of poverty when they age out of it. Neetu Garcha, Global News, Burnaby, BC.